Hey guys, hopefully everyone is doing well. Today's target is to solve question number 13.25, chapter 13, Leverage and Capital Structure, book Managerial Finance by Lawrence Gitman, and we are now going to solve 13.25. First of all, I will let you see the length of this question. It has, I think, 2 pages just for the question. And I am assuring you, it's not a complicated question, just a length does matter. So a very good practice for those who wants to check their stamina, to check their ability, to check their calmness and coolness, this question can play a vital role for checking. 13.25 is actually based upon several options when you want to change your debt equity ratio, when you want to change your level of sales, when you want to change of your taxation, interest, everything would be changed for several times. So a good manager must have multiple options in his mind. Whatever option is favorable for the organization, he should choose that option. So obviously, to choose that option, a good manager must have ability to create the options, whether to increase the sale, whether to increase the debt or to leave that debt, whether to entirely dependent upon equity financing, or how much proportion should be added for debt. So these are multiple options for a manager to decide, or for the owner of the business to decide, that which proportion is favorable or which proportion is most useful or most fruitful for the organization. So please, I will briefly let you see the question. Here there are three options. Either you want to sell it for 3 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh or 4 lakh. Probabilities are in front of the sale, that 20% chance to sell 2 lakh, 20% chance to sell 4 lakh and 60% chance to sell 3 lakh. And then they have their fixed cost, 1 lakh. Variable is also mentioned. Existing capital structure. What does that mean? As you know, there are two types of capital: debt financing, capital structure through debt financing, and capital structure through equity financing. In equity, we have seen common shareholders, preferred shareholders, and retained earning. And in debt financing, we have seen where we have taken loan, debts, debentures, and bonds. But quite surprisingly, this existing capital structure only have common shares. This is mentioned over here. The only capital which organization does have is common stock or common capital, that is 25,000 shares. No other capital items are included. I'm just going to remind you that we do have common shareholders, we do have preferred shareholders, we may have retained earning. On the other case, in debt financing, we used to have debt, then we can take loan, after which we may have debentures or bonds. So these are different ways of creating your capital structure. 7 different formats, including equity financing and debt financing. But this organization does have only one capital structure, and that is common. No preferred shares, no retained earning, no debt, loan, debentures, nothing else is present, only common share. Alright, so then what else is given in our question? Let's be forward. Here CV and estimated required rate of return is given. This is part A of your question, and we will discuss this coefficient of variation, estimated rate of return, later in second part. Here some detail is present and options are now available. Right now there is no debt, as it has been earlier described, so you may have possibility to create your capital structure with 20% debt, 40% debt and 60% debt, in which your capital structure would be changed. Tax rate is given and we are required to calculate EPS, standard deviation and coefficient. First of all, we will calculate EPS for all options. Please note the way answers are given. These are the answers for different types. If you have 0% debt, and there are three probabilities set over here: 0.20, 0.60 and 0.20 again. With these probabilities you will calculate 3 EPS for 20, 60 and again 20. It means for 0% debt you will have 3 EPS, and then you will calculate same 3 EPS for 20% debt, same 3 EPS for 40% debt, same 3 EPS for 60% debt, and this proportion of debt is given over here. So I'm very hopeful that you have idea how to create your question. Here you will create your income statement over here, and these income statement would be made with options given over here. So we are going to create income statement over here with 0% debt. This is your first option, and here you will create probability of let's see again what probabilities are given: 0.2, 0.6 and 0.2. 0.2, and we will use it again 0.6, and then we will make another income statement for probability of 0.2. So these are three different ways where you will calculate your probabilities, and here you will be writing your details. So let's make it our arrangement. Here you will write your particulars or detail. In this way your headings are completed. Let's mark them, and over here you will be using these headings. So hopefully you are mentally prepared what we are going to do, since this income statement is starting from the sales. So a comprehensive income statement would be made, which will start with sales. Then you will subtract your variable cost. This way we will get our contribution margin. Then we will subtract our fixed cost. We will get net margin, or it is called EBIT. Then we will subtract amount of interest, after which we will subtract tax, after which preferred dividend would be paid, and we have net earning, or it is also called earning available for common share holders. In this way our statement would be completed, as both statements are present over here. And let's make it arranged. Okay, once more to merge these cells. So guys, in this way we will be creating our income statement. Let's make it little better. Okay, after subtracting interest we will get our earning after interest but before tax. Here after subtracting we will get our earning after interest and after tax, and this earning would be considered as Okay, this row is unnecessary now. Let's delete it. So thankfully our income statement is completed. First we will solve this part where probability is zero point 0.2, and we will see how we can calculate our net earning, and same procedure will be copied for zero point 0.6 and zero point 0.2 probability. Let's get back to the question, and we have zero point 0.2 probability with amount of sale 2 lakh. This was needed, so let's put it down 2 lakh over here. This is your amount of sales. Let's clear it, and next you need to put your variable cost. For that, again let's go back, and your variable operating cost is 40% of sales. All right, amount of sale is 2 lakh, which is given over here, and you need to calculate 40% as your variable cost. Look over here, 40% of sale is what? Variable cost. And then we have 1 lakh as fixed cost. Let's put over here 1 lakh as fixed cost. Now we are open to calculate our contribution margin, which would be the answer of when you will subtract variable cost from sale. We are going to calculate our contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sale is 2 lakh, it is highlighted, and you will subtract variable cost, which is 80,000. So we have got our contribution margin. Fixed cost is already given in the question and we have mentioned it as well. So we are open to calculate our EBIT. This EBIT would be the difference between fixed cost and contribution margin. For that purpose, what you will do, you will subtract fixed cost from contribution margin. Contribution margin was 1,20,000 and your amount of fixed was 1 lakh given in your question. So we have got our earning before interest and tax. So we are now open to get forward, where we will put amount of interest, but for that purpose let's get back to the question. And since we do have, this is the main structure, main capital structure, where no other capital items are present. So we have 25,000 shares. It means when there is no other capital structure, no debt, no debentures, no bond, so you will have your zero interest. Now we will calculate our earning after interest, and since there is no interest present, so same previous earning 20,000 would be considered as your earning after interest. It's time to calculate your tax. Tax rate is mentioned somewhere, it should be mentioned, and I'm hopeful it is 40%. Let's see where. Okay, the tax rate is 40% mentioned over here. So let's calculate tax. 40%, which for which we need previous income, that is 20,000, and you will take 40% as your tax. After calculation of tax, we are open to determine income after tax by subtracting tax from previous income. Previous income was 20,000 and you need to subtract your tax, which is 8,000. So in this way your income after tax has been arrived. Secondly, there is no preferred share present in your question, so it means the net earning available for common shareholders is again little easy. It is difference between preferred dividend and previous earning. Previous earning 12,000 and there is no preferred dividend, so we have got our net earning available for common shareholder, it is 12,000. Let's align them, and we are now going to calculate our earning per share. Here, as you know, that earning per share, it is also called EPS. And how would you calculate this earning? For that, you will see net earning and divide it with number of shares. Only common shares would be taken. Net earning is already calculated and that is 12,000, and common shareholders over here you can see existing capital structure 25,000 common stock. So since there is no debt, so it means 25,000 our number of share. Now we are open to calculate our EPS by dividing both. So in this way we have got 0.48 as our first EPS. Let's make a little more space over here. Okay, this was not needed, the color. Let's arrange it. Okay, so first EPS we have solved. Let's mark it as it has been done. 0.48. Let's get back to the answers. You can see at 0% that your first EPS is 0.48 and we have got 0.48. First answer has been completed. Now the same procedure we will be doing for probability of 0.6. Get back to the question. This is your second probability 0.6 where your amount of sale is 3 lakh. So just write down your amount of sale which is 3 lakh, and now you need to calculate your variable cost. As it has been mentioned, it is 40% of sales. So simply what you will do, you will calculate 40% of sale is given as 3 lakh. To calculate 40%, multiply by 40 divided by 100. So you have got your variable cost. Now we are open to calculate our contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sales 3 lakh, subtract variable cost 1,20,000. So we have got our contribution margin. Now fixed cost would remain fixed for all number of unit. It is given in your question 1 lakh. So again you will be posting 1 lakh over here, which is your fixed cost. And now we are open to calculate our EBIT or net margin. EBIT, earning before interest on tax, by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. Contribution margin is 1,80,000 and you will subtract your fixed cost 1 lakh. So we have got our net margin, after which we will calculate interest. And since this is first option where we are taking existing capital structure of 25,000, no other capital is present, it means again zero interest. And now income after interest would be calculated by subtracting interest from EBIT. EBIT 80,000, no interest, same income would be income after interest but before tax. And it's the time to calculate our tax rate is also mentioned in your question, and that is 40% of previous income over here 80,000. And to calculate 40%, multiply by 40 divided by 100. So we have got our amount of tax. Now we are open to calculate income after tax by subtracting tax from previous income. Previous income 80,000 and you will subtract tax, that is 32,000. So we have got earning after tax. No preferred dividend is given in your question. So we are now open to calculate our earning available for common shareholders by subtracting preferred dividend from previous earning. Previous earning 48,000, no preferred dividend. So we have got our earning available for common shareholders. Let's arrange it, after which we are now going to calculate earning per share, for which we have used these formulas. We are taking it and let's use over here. Okay, we need more space, but it's okay. So here we will change it. Earning per share would be calculated by dividing net earning by number of shares. Net earning has been calculated 48,000, and you know that in this stage we have only one capital structure, that is 25,000 common shareholders. Statement is completed. We can now put our statement on calculator. We have got second EPS 1.92. Let's check it out. So 0% debt, second EPS is 1.92. Now we are going to calculate our third income statement. That would be calculated over here. And this one can also be transferred to this place to make it arranged form. So let's start our probability. Next probability is 20%. And let's go back to the question. So next probability 20%, sale is 4 lakh. Alright, so we are going to put our first element, that is sales, 4 lakh. Was it 4 lakh? Okay, 4 lakh. And next you need to calculate your variable cost, which is 40% of sales. To calculate 40%, this is amount of sales, and then you will multiply it with 40 divided by 100. So we have got our variable cost. After which we are open to calculate contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sale was 4 lakh, variable cost was 1,60,000. So here you have calculated your contribution margin. Fixed cost would remain fixed, and that is mentioned over here 1 lakh. So we will use same 1 lakh over here as our fixed cost. After which we are open to calculate our earning before interest and tax by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. Contribution margin to 40,000 and your fixed cost is 1 lakh. So by subtracting it, we have got our EBIT, earning before interest and tax. And since in this option we are considering existing capital structure, no other capital, it means no debt is present, so zero rate of interest would be considered. Here we are open to calculate our earning after interest by subtracting interest from previous income. Your previous income 140,000, no interest, so it means we have got our earning after interest. So it's time to calculate your tax. Tax rate is given 40%, previous income is 140,000, and you will calculate your tax by multiplying 40 divided by 100. Tax has been calculated, and what next, you will go for earning after tax by subtracting tax from previous income. Previous income was 140,000, amount of tax was 56,000, so you have got your earning after tax. We need to put preferred share, no other capital is present, it means zero preferred shares. We are now open to calculate our earning available for common shareholders for third option by subtracting preferred dividend from previous income. Previous income 84,000, subtract amount of preferred dividends, we have got earning available for common shareholders, and that is 84,000. So with this we are now open to calculate our earning per share. We are taking these headings and using to calculate our earning per share. In third case, net earning or earning available for common shareholder is 84,000, and we need to divide it with the number of shares. As you know that in this case there is only one capital, that is common shares, 25,000. Statement has been completed, and now we are open to calculate it. So 3.36 is your last EPS for first option, 3.36. So in this way, what you have done, EPS, 3 EPS are calculated for income statement of 0% debt. So now I'm sure that you have understood that what we have done and what next procedure would be. Alright guys, so for the time being we are taking these headings and we'll use them to construct our next part. Over here everything would be changed, so let's remove them. These statements are not needed, and here there would be a little time consumption to make it arranged form. First part was completed, and totals, how many answers we need? 12 answer. 3 3 3 3. We have solved 3 answers, and this is only A part, and we are calculating EPS. So please do understand the length of this question. A part is going to be solved, EPS, and first part has been solved, and now we will see 20% debt. So this would be considered as first part out of 6, and now we are going to solve second part. In this income statement there would be 20% debt. So let's calculate the amount of debt. Total capital was mentioned over here, 25,000. Existing capital structure 25,000 shares and $10 each. So how much total capital? 250,000. I think we need a little more space, so let's arrange it. I'm hopeful it would work, and it had worked. Okay, for second, what we are going to do is first mention existing capital structure, and that was 25,000 shares of 10 each. It means existing capital structure was $250,000, and we are going to change next option to create income statement with 20% debt. So new capital structure would be created where we have 20% debt, and out of total 20%, that means remaining is 80% common shares. So to create this, what you will do, take 20% debt and total capital structure is 250,000. So 250,000, and you will take 20%. Please note it down. This would be your debt, 20% debt, and how much common shares? With 250,000, 50,000 is dead. It means the remaining 2 lakh would be your common capital, and here you will note it down how many shares. As you know that 2 lakh would be the amount of common capital, and each share is of rupees 10. So we have 20,000 common shares. This is very important construction of inputs or attributes. Here 20% debt, and obviously 80% common capital. That is your second statement. When 20% debt, 80% common capital, and this is very important, your common share are changed. Number of share are now would be used as 20,000. Look over here in first option, all shares were considered as common shares, so 25,000, and now we have included debt, within which your common share portion would be decreased, and from 25,000 to 20,000 we have, and amount of debt right now is 50,000. Since in previous part we were not calculating amount of interest, look over here, amount of interest was not being calculated because of zero rate. Over here with debt ratio 20%, 10% would be the rate of interest. Let's mention now it would be 10% rate of interest. So in this way we have, one second, this was first portion and we need to change it in second portion. Amount of interest is mentioned as 10%. So please remember what changes we have made. Here there was 0% debt, and that means 100% common stock. With second statement, what we have done, 20% debt, obviously if out of total capital 20% debt remaining would be the amount of common capital, which is 80%, and we have calculated 20,000 number of shares as well. Next change we have made is in interest 10%. Now we can calculate our income. For probability 0.2, we will go back to the question, and here you can see for probability 0.2 we have 2 lakh amount of sales put over here, after which we will be able to calculate our variable cost, which is 40%. Amount of sale 2 lakh, calculate 40% of it. We have got our variable cost 80,000. We are now open to calculate contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sale. 2 lakh amount of sale, variable cost 80,000. We have got our contribution margin. Fixed cost was 1 lakh as it is. And now we can calculate EBIT by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 120,000 contribution margin, subtract fixed cost 1 lakh. So we have got our net margin as 20,000. Now we will calculate our amount of interest, for which we have seen that amount of debt is now 50,000. Please note it down. 20% debt, that means 50,000. So here please note 50,000 amount of loan, and then you will calculate 10% for amount of interest. So it would be 5,000. We are now open to calculate our earning after interest but before tax, for which we will subtract amount of interest from EBIT. 20,000 amount of EBIT, amount of interest is 5,000. So we have got our earning after interest before tax. It's time to calculate tax, for which we need previous earning, and we will calculate 40%. Previous earning 15,000. To calculate 40%, you will multiply 40 divided by 100. So we have got our amount of tax. Earning after tax now will be calculated by subtracting tax from previous earning. 15,000 was previous earning, amount of tax 6,000. So we have got earning after tax. No preferred shares are present, so we are open to calculate earning available for common shareholders by subtracting preferred dividend from earning from previous earning. 9,000 previous earning, preferred dividend 0. So we have got our earning available for common shareholders, after which we can calculate EPS. We need net earning, which we recently have calculated 9,000, and number of shares has been changed. Look over here. Now 80% of common capital would be used, and your common shares are 20,000, different to previous. So here you will put 20,000 as your common shares. Statement has been completed and we can now calculate. So second answer for first answer of second part is 0.45. Look over here, 20% debt, 0.45 is our first EPS. It has been completed. This was your second part, but first option probability 0.2. And now you will start your second probability 60%, for which you will go back to the question and see it's your sales 3 lakh. So here you will put second option 3 lakh sales, variable cost 40%, amount of sale was 3 lakh. To calculate 40%, multiply 40 divided by 100. We have got our variable cost. Now we can calculate our contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sale. Amount of sale 3 lakh, variable cost 120,000. So we have got contribution margin, fixed cost will remain fixed for all options. We can now calculate EBIT by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 1,80,000 contribution margin, 1 lakh fixed cost. So we have got 80,000 EBIT. Now we will calculate amount of interest. As you know that your debt is now 50,000 and rate is given as 10%. So we have got 5,000 as amount of interest. Earning after interest now we can calculate by subtracting interest from EBIT. Amount of EBIT 80,000 and you will subtract amount of interest 5,000, got earning after interest. Tax would be calculated by applying 40% rate upon previous earning was 75,000. To calculate 40% you will multiply 40 divided with 100. We have got amount of tax as 30,000. Earning after tax now will be calculated by subtracting tax from previous earning. 75,000 previous earning, amount of tax 30,000. So you have got 45,000 as earning after interest. No dividend is present. So we are now open to calculate earning available for common shareholder by subtracting preferred dividend from previous earning. 45,000 previous earning, amount of dividend 0. So we have got earning available for common shareholder. EPS we are open to calculate. Net earning 45,000 we have just calculated and we need to divide by number of shares in this option. 20% is debt, so remaining number of shares are 20,000. Statement has been completed, so you are open to calculate it. 2.25. So you have got your second answer 2.25. We are proceeding to 20% debt. 2.25 is your second answer. So guys, let's come to the third portion. Go back to the question and we have 20% again probability with sale amount of 4 lakh. Let's put 4 lakh amount of sale over here. Now we will calculate variable cost, which is 40% of sales. Amount of sales 4 lakh. Calculate 40% by multiplying 40 divided by 100. Variable cost has been calculated. Contribution margin would be calculated by subtracting variable cost from sales. 4 lakh amount of sale. Variable cost 1,60,000. So we have got 240,000 as our contribution margin. Fixed cost would remain same, 1 lakh. And what we will do now, we will calculate EBIT by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 240,000 contribution margin and subtract your fixed cost, which is 1 lakh. So we have got EBIT 140,000. Rate of interest was 10% and amount of debt we have calculated. Look over here, it was 50,000. Rate of interest was 10%. So we have got our amount of interest, and now we can calculate earning after interest by subtracting interest from EBIT. 140,000 amount of EBIT and you will subtract amount of interest, which is 5,000. 135,000 earning after interest. Here's the time to calculate tax, which is 40%. We need previous earning. 1,35,000 previous earning, multiply by 40 and divided by 100. You will get your amount of tax. Earning after tax now will be calculated by subtracting tax from previous earning. 135,000 previous earning, amount of tax 54,000. So you have got your earning after tax. No dividend was present, so you can now open to calculate earning available for common shareholders, for which you need previous earning and then subtract preferred dividend. You will get your earning available for common shareholders. After calculation of net earning, we are now open to calculate EPS, for which we need earning available for common shareholders 81,000 just calculated and number of shares are 20,000. Statement is completed. Now we are open to calculate our earning per share by dividing net earning with number of shares. So we have got 6.75 for 20% debt. 20% debt. Let me see what is written. 81,000. Okay, it was needed to write 20,000. So typographically it was written like this, 4.05. Let's get back and you can see your final answer is 4.05. So 6 EPS we have calculated, with which our two parts are completed, where 0% debt and 20% debt has been arranged. So what suggest me whether we should end this part or we should complete 40% debt as well. We have to calculate three more parts. Look over here, 40% debt and 60% debt would be calculated, and then we will be calculating standard deviation and coefficient of variation for these EPS, for these three proposed capital structure. And we need to calculate optimum capital structure as well. Graph is also needed. So what to do? We have a short time left as well. For today, 40% debt would take at least 15 minutes. So why not we should take this opportunity. Alright guys, one more structure we will be constructing, and whole of this statement would be taken to make our third statement. Let's make it over here. This, it might create a problem. Let's see. No. Okay, thankfully everything has been done. So we are now going to make our third option. Here we will change everything. These statements are now not needed. Let's remove them. And obviously EPS for previous part still not needed. Let's remove them. Here we will create our next option. Capital structure 20% debt. Go back to the question, and we are now over third probability, where 40% would be the debt. Okay, so here instead of 20% debt, we would have 40% of debt. It means common shareholders would be 60%. So to calculate 40%, simply you will take total capital was 250,000 and now 40% would be amount of debt. If out of 250,000, 1 lakh total capital was 250,000, and out of it 1 lakh is now amount of debt. So you have 150,000 as your common share capital, and 20, it would also be changed. We have 150,000 now amount of common capital, so number of shares would be 15,000. Here we are going to change, now facing 40% of debt, and obviously 60% would be the common capital. Importantly, note it down, number of shares has been changed from 20,000 to 15,000. So guys, we are now open to put our sale for probability 0.2. Here probability is 0.2 and amount of sale is 2 lakh. So put 2 lakh over here. Variable cost would be calculated 40%, amount of sale 2 lakh, and you will take its 40% to calculate variable cost. Contribution margin would be calculated by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sale is 2 lakh and subtract variable cost 80,000. So you have got contribution margin 1,20,000. Fixed cost, as you know, we should have in our mind, it would remain same 1 lakh for all the options. Look over here, fixed operating cost is 1 lakh. And you won't be changing this 1 lakh for any option. We have 12 different options, but fixed cost would remain same. EBIT would be calculated by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin, 1,20,000 contribution margin, 1 lakh fixed cost. So we have got our EBIT 20,000. Amount of interest, interestingly, this would be changed. Your debt is now 1 lakh and rate is 10%. 1 lakh debt multiply by 10 divided by 100. So amount of interest now would be calculated is 1000. So in this way, your proportion would be changed, where your probability would be altered. So amount of interest now would be changed to 10,000 as your 40% of debt. And how did you calculate this 40%? 250,000 was total amount of capital and its 40% is your debt. And how we have taken 40%? This was shown over here. For 40% debt, your rate of interest is now changed to 12%. Okay, so rate of interest for third option is not now 10%, it would be 12%. Let's go back to the question. From here, consider that we are up to 40% of debt, where rate of interest is now 12%. So for third option, your rate of interest would be changed from 10% to 12%. So amount of interest would now be calculated as 12,000. Earning after interest would be calculated by subtracting interest from EBIT. 20,000 EBIT and amount of interest is 12,000. So you have got your earning after interest. 40% is tax, for which we need previous earning, 8,000 previous earning, and just take 40% to calculate total amount of tax. We are now open to calculate earning after tax by subtracting tax from previous earning. 8,000 previous earning, amount of tax 3,200. So we have got earning after tax, no dividend. It means to calculate earning available for common shareholders, you will subtract amount of dividend from previous earning, 4,800 previous earning, amount of dividend 0. So you have got your earning per share 4,800. After which we are open to calculate earning per share, for which we need previous earning 4,800 and we need to divide it with number of shares. And number of share we have recently calculated, it has been changed. Instead of 20, we will use 15,000. And if you want to know it again, please rewind your or revise or reverse your lecture for 10 minutes and you will come to know. So 4,800 your earning and number of share 15,000. We have got 0.32 for third option. Okay, you have seen that 0.32 for 40% debt. And what we have got is 0.32. So thankfully all answers are coming in a butterly flow. So next probability 60%, where we will go and see what was amount of sale. For 60% amount of sale is 3 lakh. So here you will put 3 lakh, and now variable cost is 40% of sale, amount of sales 3 lakh, and just calculate 40%. We have got our variable cost. Now we can calculate contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sales. 3 lakh amount of sale, variable cost 120,000. We have got contribution margin, fixed cost would remain same, 1 lakh. Okay, so EBIT is open to be calculated by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 180,000 contribution margin, fixed cost 1 lakh. We have got our EBIT as 80,000. Amount of interest, as you know that your debt structure is changed. We have 1 lakh now debt and your rate is changed to 12%. So multiply by 12 and divided by 100, with which you will calculate your amount of interest 12,000. Earning after interest is needed to be calculated by subtracting interest from EBIT. 80,000 EBIT, amount of interest 12,000. You have got your earning after interest. Now we can calculate our tax by applying 40% rate upon previous earning. 68,000 previous earning and 40% is rate. Your tax has been calculated. Now you can calculate your earning after tax by subtracting tax from previous earning. 68,000 previous earning, amount of tax is 27,200. You have got your earning after tax. No dividend is present, so finally earning available for common shareholders can be calculated by subtracting preferred dividend from previous earning. 48,000 previous earning, amount of dividend 0, so you have got your net earning or earning available for common shareholder. EPS, now you are open to calculate, for which you need previous earning 48,000, 40,800, that is your net earning. Number of shares are now changed 15,000, and we have already mentioned it over here. As you know, just reminding you, 15,000 number of share. How did you calculate? Common stock was 15,000 and 10 was your per unit price. Look over here, 150,000 common share capital and divided per unit price, you will get your number of shares 15,000. So we are now open to calculate EPS, earning per share, by dividing net earning with number of shares. You have got 2.72. Okay, look over here, 40% debt is going on. Your second answer is 2.72. Look, 40% debt is going on, and second answer which we have calculated is 2.72. And now we will calculate our third probability. For that, let's go back. 4 lakh is amount of sales. Put over here 4 lakh. Okay, so variable cost would be calculated taking 40% of sale. Amount of sale 4 lakh, multiply 40 divided by 100. You have got your variable cost. Now contribution margin would be calculated by subtracting variable cost from sales. 4 lakh amount of sale, variable cost 1,60,000. You have got your contribution margin. As you know, fixed cost would not be altered in any case. 1 lakh FC, and now EBIT would be calculated by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 240 contribution margin, 1 lakh fixed cost. You have got your EBIT, earning before interest and tax. Amount of interest would be calculated. For this, please note it down. We now have capital structure with 40% debt, and that was 1 lakh. And rate was given as 12%. So you have got your amount of interest. Earning after interest can be calculated by subtracting interest from EBIT. 140,000 EBIT, amount of interest 12,000. You have got earning after interest. Here you will calculate your tax, for which you need previous earning. 128,000 previous earning, rate was given 40% in book. So you have got your amount of tax. Earning after tax would be calculated by subtracting tax from previous earning. 128,000 previous earning, amount of tax was 51,200. You have got your earning after tax. No dividend was present, so you are open to calculate earning available for common shareholders by subtracting preferred dividend from previous earning. 76,800 earning, no dividend, so you have got your net earning. This is important to calculate your EPS, for which what you will do, 76,800 your net earning. Number of shares are now 15,000. Statement is completed. 76,800 would be divided by 15,000 to get our third part of EPS with 40% debt. Okay, so come over here. This is 40% of debt, and third part is 5.12, and what we have calculated is also 5.12, and this was your 40% debt. That is your third part. Let's highlight it. I need to make it more visible. So this was your third part, and let's highlight second part as well, and then first part. It is important to make your question in presentable form. So just look at the length of the question and solution. First part and 3 EPS are calculated. Second part, 3 EPS are calculated. Then third part, 3 EPS have been calculated. So again come to the question, we are required to calculate EPS, 3 are calculated, and since lecture time is not required to be prolonged, so we will solve in this part first 3 EPS for all 3 options. Next part we will see with 60% of debt, and then we will calculate standard deviation and CV. We will select optimal structure, and then we will make the graph, and hopefully that would be solved in single part. Right now our first part of this lecture has been ended. We are making it as 13.25. Just consider it part A of the lecture, and we will take a short break and we'll come back and we'll see its second part. And I have already informed you this single part has left 60% of that. We will continue our calculation for EPS for 60% debt. Standard deviation CV will be calculated and remaining part would be solved. But for now, this lecture has been ended. 13.25 first part. Now please, it's a request to please repeat this question for 4 to 5 times and come back and start your lecture for 13.25 for B part. Okay, 13.25 A part is ended. If you have any query, any problem, any misunderstanding, you are very open to ask your queries, your questions through messages, text, or you can directly contact for your questions. I will surely be available for answering those questions instantly. 13.25 is ended. We will be meeting soon again for its second part. And up till then, please take care of yourself, and I'm requesting you to please pray for me as well. Thank you very much for your time. It's time to say goodbye. Allah Hafiz.